I'm gonna go get something to drink.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon? Yeah, but it's close.
Yeah.
Not just me, I'm coordinating like another.
I only got 3 hours of sleep, so I can't.
Is anyone willing to be secretary? Yeah. Yeah.
So, in the agenda, it seems like in the list of attendees, new counselors are missing.
Sorry?
New counselors are missing from the list of attendees.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Something to know for next time.
Yeah, and we'll change after the minutes again. I'm just gonna pull up the- Yes. I absolutely do. It will be slightly different, but I will email it to you. Even if it's not the same, then for sure. Sorry. No. Yeah. Technology. Yeah, seriously.
I'm definitely like a dance like yeah, I went and picked them like right now it's just like hey, let's go Belgium, team never won anything and yeah. Or Croatia, dude. I think it's Croatia. Well, should make it yeah, there it is.
Hey, Savannah.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking a minute, by the way.
Secretary.
You make my life so much easier. Holy cow.
Yep.
Here to help.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul is almost here, so. Paul. Well, that like means that
Oh, yeah.
instead of always palming it off to you. I'm so sorry.
Wait, it has to send it for Facebook? No. Oh, I got it on email now. We're good. Okay, sorry. I think it might be people adding people friends on Facebook. So I think it's showing up in a different. Okay. Yeah. I'll add me on that. Sounds great. Well, I got an email, so you know we're good for. But yeah. No, it's all okay.
I think we have appointment of officers in the preliminaries and the order of business in the agenda, and I think it's just a holdover from the first.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make a note to read that. That is all. Sorry, now it's just opening. Yeah, it's technology. I think that's what I have to do. Even so, if sometimes I don't know what to do, it's, you really sorry. It's not your fault. Just we appreciate you doing it. Like,
Would you like to lower my laptop for a little bit?
I can't. We'll have them in two places, but.
Yeah, you're sending these over to Seneca later, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Or we can just switch it for the purposes of this meeting.
Do you have the word doc? Okay. Oh, I just have 2 minutes on here, but we'll make it work. Okay, we're good to go. Yeah, okay. All right. Awesome. So we were at the point of approving the agenda. No one has any objections to the agenda? People who arrived after? Have you guys looked at the agenda and are okay with it? Yeah. Okay. All right. So then, the minutes. Has anyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes or any objections yet?
Yeah, I forwarded a request for amendments to send it back.
Just have that. Okay. Anyone else? noticed just a couple typos, so I'll talk to Kristen about it. It's not nothing to do with the content, though. All right, so no one has any objections to the minutes?
One note for the body. I made a mistake with parliamentary procedure on breaking the tie last meeting. It doesn't affect the nature of the way the vote went, so the vote still failed. But I noted my mistake in the minutes now, so the updated minutes reflect that, just so everyone knows.
Yes.
So similarly, the minutes for the June 17th meeting does not have new counselors in attendance, in list of attendees.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, that's a good point.
For the last meeting, there were a bunch of acclamations, and so I sent out an email that said that our counselors, if you can come, but you're not expected to come because it was such a short timeline. But yeah, we should include those, but I don't think we should penalize those.
Okay. So sorry guys. So all in favor of approving the minutes with the amendments?
What was the amendment that was coming
It was
from Jason to sign that?
It was relating to that mistake in breaking the tie. There's now a note added to the minutes about that.
Okay, sorry, I thought
yeah, okay. All right. So knowing that, all in favor of approving the minutes with those amendments? All right. Perfect. All opposed or abstaining? All right. So passes unanimously. Awesome. So we can move on to the next part. So first off, I'll let Savannah talk about the ratification service coordinates.
Sure. So the new service that passed through council last term, we have hired service coordinators for that service. Due to the transition where we are, they've been hired for the remainder of this term in August as well as for fall term for that opportunity so that we can get the ball rolling on implementing the service as soon as possible. So those are the two coordinators that we have interviewed and hired. I guess that would be my little spiel about it.
So I don't have any questions. Okay. In that case, we can move on. Seneca, are you going to talk about the ratification of director appointments?
Yes, the board appointed people to the council committees. We just have to ratify their appointment per procedure.
Anyone have anything they would like to say about that? Okay. So then we can talk about, or Seneca, do you want to talk about the next on the agenda? The ratification of appointing Connor?
Yeah, those are the director amendments.
Okay, sorry. Oh, sorry. Misread it. Okay, so then we just need to vote on that.
Don't we need a second?
Sorry, yes. Second? Okay.
And do we have a member?
Is second moving it? I assume, sorry. Sure. Yeah, sorry, right, yeah. All right, so in that case, all in favor of the ratifications? Okay. So that's unanimous. Perfect.
I thought they were all clumped together, or was it just?
Do you guys, sorry, do we want to vote on them individually? I was comfortable together.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
It was
a
fun.
consent
Because it's
agenda.
consent.
All right, so the next up we have the executive reports. So first off, the president.
Hello, everyone. So since the last council meeting, a lot has happened actually. Let me know if you have any questions specifically on what has, but so far, the 25th, which was a Monday, I went to Western, where they had basically a summit on their bystander intervention program called the Outstanding Program. And it was myself and representatives from the Student Success Office, from Housing and Residence, and also Amanda Cook, our Sexual Finance Response Coordinator. And we all agreed that the program, so it's basically a train-the-trainer kind of summit. And we all agreed that that program was something that was very relevant. It was very well presented, and I think that we're going to implement it in some capacity at the university. And we're going to have talks soon. I'm not sure when we're setting up a meeting, either sometime this month or next month, but just go over the details of that and see how we're going to move forward with it. As well, the committees of council, so in my portfolio, President's Advisory Committee, Policies and Procedures, the Water Fund last company, and also the Geo Task Force as well has met since then. If you have any specific questions on that, let me know. For now, what I can tell you is that all of the meetings have been very productive. We have explored some ideas for first-year grade trip. And Policies and Procedures Committee has also gone through so far only the freedom of information policy that was presented last time. With respect to the mental health policy that was tasked to PPC, unfortunately, Savannah wasn't able to make the first meeting, and so having her as a resource person, we thought that we should move it to the next meeting for discussion. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay. All right, so in that case, next up we have VP Student Life.
Did everyone have a chance to read through my updates? I don't want to repeat that, so if you guys had a chance, then I won't go into too much detail there, but on the top of our wellness days, that is a partnership between Pure Education and Athletics and Recreation to provide some wellness-related initiatives across campus. So was launched at the beginning of July. So far, I think it's going well, but I'm also a little biased. I attended the first event. It was great. We're looking to do a lot of satellite campus engagement, and so actually heading to pharmacy tomorrow to do a DIY travel bar for those students there, which I'm pretty excited about. And as for the council committees, we've all met. Actually, another CLAC meeting tomorrow, and kind of discussing goals and action plan areas and where the committee wants to go for the year. And I guess for all of them, kind of figuring out what direction to go. So that's been very productive. And we have a committee of presidents and senior societies tomorrow. And one of the things on the agenda is discussing the fall cross-campus event that we will hopefully be having in the fall. What questions do you have? Sweet.
Okay, in that case, we have VP Operating Finance.
Cool. So since last council meeting, one of the big discussions we had in my portfolio was GRT. Myself and Matt have sent out the email, and we're actually meeting up with some stakeholders from there, discussing the opt-in option for hopefully the fall term, and also what it will be happening in the grace period. So that's happening in the next 2 weeks with them. Another one, Dion messaged me actually about the Fed bus ticket. Before it said how you had to print off the ticket to take the bus, and I updated that so you can just cut a screenshot instead, so make it easier for students. Printing is an issue. Action plan will be public by end of July, and for my committee, budget committee, we're meeting later this week, finalizing the proposed budget, and after that we'll be sending it out or forwarding it to all of you to take a look over. Any questions?
Question.
Yeah.
So regarding the Fed bus screenshotting, is there a time to put up promotions for that, or just like add on to get an happy find out as
I was planning to just add on the ticket. The main reason for that is just because in case they thought they screenshotted it, I don't want screenshotting to be promoted in case there's a mistake or a technical error, because obviously printing is still the safest bet to get on the bus, but yeah, it has that option too. If you guys want me to promote it, I can get that to happen.
All right. Anyone have any questions or anything else? Okay. But in that case, we're now on to VP Education.
All right, so just in case you didn't notice, there was a written report. I'm doing a report each month, and the deadline for submission for this council meeting was a couple of days before I wrote the It has been a relatively quiet couple of weeks for me. I'll walk you guys through the highlights. My department is working on putting together all this patio event for artists, where we bring in MPs, city councilors, and have an opportunity for students to interact with them. Artists, I would recognize it's not the most opportune time for students, but it is typically the most opportune time for politicians, and so that is when that is going to be, so we can get people in the door. I have started the elections debrief, the provincial election, with people in the department as well, bringing back feedback from the last council meeting and the Education Advisory Council. Essentially, we are going to be working towards making an elections best practices handbook with this and other elections that are coming up within the next year. I reached out to the registrar's office, initiating contacts to figure out what data source we should be using for seat allocation. This council most accurately describes the student body. I'm still waiting for an email back. This is the period in the university calendar where people are most likely to be away on vacation, so it's not moving quickly, but it's not unexpected that it's happening. I'm still expecting to be able to work on a report with Richard in either August or September. At the last council meeting, I briefed you guys on the brief that had USA's strategic conference, or USA StratCon, which is where we decided what our advocacy objectives would be for provincial advocacy in the next year. Nothing really happened there yet. Essentially, stuff has been given to the USA. I'm going to a USA steering committee meeting tomorrow, where we'll figure out how the staff are pitching to us as the steering committee, how they want to achieve those objectives throughout the year. Also on the topic of USA, I have made a draft USA review framework for approval by EAC. It seemed decently well liked at the first EAC meeting, but or the last EAC meeting, but we'll be refining it before the panel meets. The panel will be filled out next meeting with nominations, so that is definitely going to happen. We can get the ball rolling there. My action plan is completed. Pending board approval, I'll bring it to the next council meeting and attach it in my report. I met with the local health integrated network, local LIN. I can't remember what the acronym is. It's just the LIN. To talk about mental health, what we are doing in terms of mental health on campus. It's a kind of topic that flows through each of our portfolios. I've been sort of in initial contact with the local area for mental health. So let's see how it goes. We had some talks about how we can better make sure that their work is being informed by students and there's student input on what resources we're providing. So I'll call that the first chunk of my report. I have a second chunk on the whole air quality issue, which will be after I address some questions for that first.
Yeah, you mentioned Feds is looking at some series of multi-site patio. Do you have like a rough date for that?
Not yet. It would be one event in August where we try to get as many people in different levels of government as possible.
Okay.
It's run in the past, essentially leaving it to staff in the department to sort out logistics. I'm pretty sure we'll have a date by the time that our next council meeting arrives, so I can make sure that fits in.
Have you got an updated date for EAC meeting?
No, it's probably going to be too soon. I just double check it. Any other questions?
Are
right, so the second thing that I'm reporting on is the air quality assessment. I had a meeting with the University Safety Office as per council's direction. Here somewhere. Essentially, there are 3 ways in which air quality is assessed on campus. One is kind of routine testing, which covers carbon dioxide levels, humidity, and temperature. Second is if there is a particular risk factor. For example, if there's a workshop nearby that picks up metal dust filings as particulate, they'll test regularly for those particular risk factors. And thirdly, if somebody makes a complaint, they will pass the air. So with regards to MC in particular, I spoke with the senior safety officer for air quality, who told me that in the 15 years they've been there, they've never had a staff complaint from MC. They had no identified risk factors, but if a student from Reddit wanted to reach out to the safety office, they would investigate it. And as some of you may know, we tried to reach out to the students, did not get a response. So I find that is probably going to be a bit of a dead end on the university side. I also, while I was there, inquired as to cost of doing the assessments. I did not go into depth into this because when I talked to them, he just showed me a machine. He said, "Yeah, it's $10,000, and I think we're gonna send it back for measuring particulate matter." So I've also read through the air quality measuring standards for Ontario. It seems like to get an actual accurate reading is pretty intense, and based on the cost of the equipment there, I don't think it's something that's going to be for vets, but I entertain further questions on that or other grounds.
So, the possible person that don't have to see would that be cost as well?
I don't think so, no.
Just no for that.
No for that, yeah. I feel like if that was permitted, then me going there probably would consider that.
Okay. I'll try to show that to a student.
Any other questions on air quality testing?
The machine costs $10,000 or it costs $10,000 to go through
The machine costs $10,000.
correct?
No idea.
Does anyone else have any questions? Alright, so in that case, on one of the versions of the agenda sent out, we now had a time where I think the math counselors in particular have messaged me saying they want to give a report. So I understand it's not on this version of the agenda, but it was on one. So I can go ahead and give your report.
Yeah, so we reported results for students Wednesday as the academic asking everything and organizing. So tentatively, this is just an idea to reach out students, Reddit, and Facebook, and get basically what their thoughts are and some policy. And so tentatively, we're going for July 19th, which is Thursday, I believe, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Very interested in participating. It would be amazing. We can get all times in order and have presentation. So if you're interested, please let me know. Yeah. Great.
Alright, anyone have any questions? Okay, in that case, we are going to move on to the business arising from minutes. So first up, we have the Freedom of Information and Secrecy and Corporation Governance Policy. And so Seneca's going to talk to that in a bit. Seneca, you good to? Unless you can't hear us. Oh, sorry, actually I skipped over.
Oh, sorry.
It's alright.
Sorry, I try again.
It's good. They report.
Yeah, sorry, no, I just realized. Sorry guys, I skipped over Seneca's report for the council Facebook group survey results. So he's going to speak to that first.
So if this is copy, You guys just cut me off, and maybe Liz can read off the slides because I kind of put in writing what it was supposed to say because I knew that calling me would be a problem. So Gabe, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, sweet. So then, slide 2 goes into the purpose and goals. You know, as titled, the purpose was to hold an internal Facebook group for council.
So this was in the minutes or in the agenda that was sent out, so you all have this too.
It was commissioned by a few councilors who were interested in having an informal group for the opportunities, comments, and sharing of ideas. Other identified purposes that we thought about were facilitating communication and outreach between councilors to promote policy development. The goal of the survey was to determine council sentiment on the creation of a Facebook group and allow commentary or concerns to be raised. The survey was administered by myself. Slide 3, just overviews the demographic data. We had 5 society presidents participating, 3 of the 4 Fed's executives, and 18 councilors. 0 commissioners, at-large committee chairs, or other participating. So demographic data, you can just see the distribution here. It's just for record purposes. I'm going to skip to slide 5, is desire for an informal Facebook group. So there were 26 total responses. 1 said no, 3 said they had no opinion on the matter, 22 said yes. 0 persons said they were not sure. The strength of their position, so I asked them to scale 0 being strongly opposed to 10 being strongly supportive. The results below were listed. Mean was 7.65 out of 10 in favor of supporting the creation of a Facebook group. The mode was 10 out of 10, and the mean was 8, with a standard deviation of 2.06 out of 10. On slide 7, some identified risks are that some of the participants, 4 members, expressed concern that there was an adverse risk of sharing sensitive or confidential information through the Facebook group. Accessibility, a participant expressed concern that they did not have a Facebook account and therefore would not be able to access the group. And personal information. One participant stated that there was some risk of personal information spill over when using social media for professional purposes. Full disclosure, I was one of the 4 expressing concerns about risk of confidential information disclosure from some of our Fed's committees. So the recommendations that I've outlined are that if council wishes to proceed with a Facebook group, then the following should apply. There should be a strict confidentiality policy, so that there's no sharing of confidential or sensitive information on social media. For any such purposes, email or private messages or other appropriate media is advised. The group should remain informal and should be managed by Elizabeth or myself or Richard or somebody, simply for administrative purposes, but not restricting any other managerial aspects of the group. As a precautionary measure, the group should be set to secret to minimize potential exposures, to minimize risk for potential exposures of sensitive or confidential information. If council does not wish to proceed with creating a Facebook group, then the following options are also available. The council mailing list is accessible to all councilors, so feel free to use it. I know so far only Dion and maybe Jason have it. Note the email traffic limit got actually raised from 3,125 kilobytes. It's now 25 megabytes. I raised that after the agenda failed to go out for 2 days because I accidentally set the limit too low when Elizabeth tried to send it out. But keep in mind that each month, all emails and attachments sent via the mail list become public at list.feds.ca/payroll/council. Slack is an option. It's free most of the time, I think. I think it's for a group set, but I'm not positive. It might be overkill. It does offer channel features that are usable for individual committees, and you can set channels to secret so that some committees can operate confidentially or maybe discuss that over email separate from their Slack channel. That is an option of itself. I think another councilor mentioned that there was an option for Waterloo because we have access to Microsoft Office Suite that might also be useful. So slide 9, other recommendations. This idea brings up some long discussed matters that should get resolved and have never really been solved. Some of them are out of the scope of the survey in particular, but are worth discussion, so I put them in here. And they might be for your discussion, maybe in new business, or if you guys think they're important, then whatever. Should there be a code of conduct and procedure for counselors? Should there be confidentiality forms for counselors, for any potential counselor, any information may be confidential? So typically, if we're discussing with counsel, it is not confidential. I don't think anything in coming to counsel is really confidential information. But some of the committees deal with confidential information, or it's confidential until a point, like the budget is confidential until it's sent to council for approval, just so that people can work on it without issues. And can we increase council's team mentality? I think that was one of the underlying features of maybe having a Facebook group, is that we can have an informal relationship between councilors. Councilors can get to know one another a little bit better, and build more bridges. If that's something that we can do in another way too, and kind of expand our team mentality. And then last but not least, how can council do a better job at outreach and engagement in general? So if the purpose of the Facebook group is to try to build bridges with councilors, help with policy development and stuff like that, and like promotion of items. Like maybe, for instance, I'm going to throw Dion under the bus here, but like the math counselors meeting, open office hours. If part of it's to help promote each other's stuff, then how can we do a better job at engagement and outreach generally, even without Facebook? So like 10 out of 10 is just my personal comment. It's my general belief that formal group discussion and even informal group debate among counselors should primarily be limited to the time reserved for meetings of council or its committees. That isn't to say counselors shouldn't be talking between meetings. It's really an expectation that you should be talking between meetings, but formal discussion should be taking place in chambers or at committee meetings. I'd be concerned that this Facebook group may become more of a problem than a tool that people put too much formal trust in it or put information they're not supposed to up on it. It is also my opinion that counselors should Since counselors' time should be used on constituent outreach, communication with their faculty, society, committees, governance, research, and policy development. So if this, you think that's the way of that, that's a consideration. If you think this augments it and improves our operations, then in formal capacity, then I think it's a good idea. But this is just the outline. So I guess it's a discussion item, so take it away, but that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Senator about any of this? Yeah.
Yeah, Senator. So in previous councils, last year or the year before, or any of the previous years, have there been a council Facebook group?
I mean, I unless that's just a wrong answer, but no. I don't think so. Not that
If the questions are for me, it's hard to hear, sorry.
The question was just, have there been Facebook groups for council in past years? And my answer was no.
Correct, we have not.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Can you define the secret, why secret is better than closed, for example?
So Seneca, if you can't hear that, the question is, why would we want the Facebook group to be secret instead of just closed or something?
It just minimizes the opportunity for, if something does accidentally go up there, it's like a Colorado balloon. If you have really tight protections on it initially, then the opportunity for information to accidentally cause a problem is lower. So if you set the high standard, then it's just to mitigate. I think I put the explanation in there when I said it, was just to minimize the opportunity for disclosures if they were to occur.
And with a closed group, people can still see the content. So secret makes it that only the members can see the content.
Yes.
So this is more to add on to the part about Slack, which we decided not to go into the group. The school does offer a Slack area for free for students in faculty called Mattermost. And the reason why this is better than just going for Slack is because if you go for Slack scraping, then we have limited history. So things that are old messages you just can't find them anymore. So if you just go to Mattermost instance, all you have to do is send an email, they just create instance for us, and it will be private for only the members of the council. And they can create private channels if they want to, and only log into the service using whatever account. So it's a good thing. It's the school also infrastructure. So we can worry about issues.
So did you hear that?
None of it.
All right. Yeah. So basically, the school offer a version of Slack where we get like unlimited history, whereas like Slack has I guess unlimited history for the free version. So that could be an advantage of using that version and a good way for us to do it. It also offers security.
Yeah, I don't think history is much of an issue in terms of Slack. I feel like if we really need to scroll back that far, we're probably running into other issues. Formal decisions, shouldn't be being made to these channels anyhow. So, I mean, I don't think history is going to be too much of an issue because any formal decisions get recorded in minutes. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't know, Slack or whatever this Microsoft alternative might be a good idea.
Sorry, I think actually you reversed it and then it's yeah.
Yeah, on the Slack, I think like it can be quickly an issue since it's 10,000 messages, and if someone's sending a private, if someone has a long private chat with someone else, then that is also counting towards that 10K limit, and now you can't read messages like an AO anymore. So yes, like for that reason, I would say Slack should be a lower priority.
Sure. Okay.
Has there been any consideration for WhatsApp? It's automatic ability for it's about security. Yeah.
Okay. So Seneca, the question was, have you considered WhatsApp at all?
I have not. I was commissioned to do the survey by 3 counselors, and I just did it. So I wasn't considering too many other alternatives. I threw some out there because of the risk concerns presented by 4 council, myself included. So there were only some alternatives there for food and thought. If you guys come up with better methods, then go for it.
To counter your WhatsApp point, if someone new gets added to a group, they cannot see the history, which will be a big issue. And searchability is generally very limited.
All right.
So yeah, I'm just wondering what would the inherent benefit of having a Facebook group? If it's just for communication between counselors, I think email is good enough. If it's designed to facilitate communal outreach opportunities, then it doesn't really make sense to then keep it secret. You see what I'm saying? Like it seems like we're trying to do many different things with one initiative. If it's going to be for facilitating outreach, then it doesn't make sense that the group be secret. And if it's going to be for communicating between counselors, then maybe have an email just because it's like there would be an internet. So I mean, maybe something that can answer, but I just.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So I'll carry. Okay. So Seneca. So the point that was just raised was for communication between counselors, like we currently have email, and for something that's more of an outreach, we would probably like a closed or secret group isn't necessarily the best way for it to do outreach. So what's the value of having this over just using email?
Great question. That should probably be more direct to the people who commissioned the survey than me, but I did outline on slide 2, I believe, purpose and goals. So engagement was one of the goals. That was one of the other conversations that we really should be having, but it was not one of the initial goals of the survey. The purpose of the group, as defined by the people who contacted me, was to have an informal Facebook group for commenting, sharing of ideas, communal outreach opportunities between counselors, and to facilitate communication between counselors and promote policy development between counselors. So, I mean, if you're going to do something in that regard, it's going to be there, and maybe you want to share it on Facebook, you get input from your Facebook friends and your faculty, or your faculty society or something, that's a different story, and that's just you doing your job. But I think the purpose of the group was just to be a little bit more informal, idea sharing, opportunity sharing between counselors, trying to build a relationship and team mentality with counselors. I would direct that question to the people who commissioned it, so if any of them want to speak up for it, go for it.
I was actually going to raise a similar point to whomever ICE commissioned this survey. What is going forward? What are we going to do? What are the sort of actionables? Is there a plan for anybody to make a motion to make this more formal, or are we just going to all say it, or we just chat? I guess. I mean, that just sounds snarky, but I guess going forward, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was I who commissioned this, but I did ask Seneca about the Facebook group, and then the email was sent out. So maybe I commissioned it. It seems that we never had a Facebook group. So yes, there are sorts of risk, accessibility, personal information being spoken out, but we've never had this. We've never tried it. So right now, all of these factors are somewhat unknown. So may it be considered that we at least try using Facebook group, see what happens. If it doesn't work, then let's remove this. If it turns out it's a good tool, then let's give it a try.
Okay. So So I think Dion and Jason in the back here.
Just follow up with the concerns about risk and animals mainly, and if concern is mainly about risk and animals and also run school servers, and not logging using your URL cast logging. So it is restricted in the school environment, and so it won't go to Facebook servers. So that's a concern there, and animals.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, so basically saying that not most is hosted on school servers. So if there's concerns about like privacy or confidentiality, people have to log in using like their URL ID and CAS. So all of that's contained in the school environment. Nothing's going to Facebook servers.
So Jason, then you.
My general point of concern was like shifting stuff away is that like council is meant to be a transparent body. Like we're pretty much never dealing with confidential matters anyways. And the way I see it, like, while it might be good to like say have a group chat for the purpose of like building form discussion, I'd say an actual like group where we're sharing like larger pieces of information. I feel like that should happen through the email list for the reason that the email list is a public venue that other people can look at. So I think that's a good transparency tool. So I'd say at most we should have like an actual chat where we're not like sharing documents. Like if someone wants to like say have a proposed policy or something, that could be through the email list. Like I've done that in the past and now a draft of the policy out to everyone through the email list. So that way it goes to everyone, but it also goes to people outside of the council who may be interested.
Yeah, I feel like a chat would be more, like for the purposes of what it seems like this is supposed to do, I feel like a chat would just be better off. The Facebook group and then making it secret, although it's not a big deal, it just seems unnecessary.
So I'd actually like us to do a straw poll about whether we would like something, be it Slack or Facebook or whatever, or not, like just whether we're actually considering proceeding with this. So all in favor of creating a something? You can define the something after, but alright, so sorry. So raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright, I think that's the majority. So then we can maybe move on to discussing what the something looks like or is. So are we thinking like a Facebook group, the version of Slack we use at the university? I feel like there might have been another one. Yes, sir.
I think it seems that people want to have conversations with other counselors, so maybe if we do that like Facebook chat idea, then people can have those casual conversations, and it keeps it. I think what's been said a lot is it keeps the council procedures stuff and the more serious conversations in the chambers. Sorry, there was the word, in the chambers, but then gives people the opportunity to chat and build those relationships and get to know each other a bit more over the chat.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
I would just voice my support for this Slack alternative since it uses the credentials that we already all have, so there would be no accessibility issues for those who don't have like a Facebook or whatever third-party system account.
Yeah.
Just confused. Are we trying to find a better way to communicate between ourselves, which is great Slack, or are we trying to create a platform to ease public engagement?
My understanding is it's communication with ourselves. Is that I don't have a different understanding, but it's okay. All right.
I'm curious, what's the name of the alternative? It's not matter. How do you spell that?
Sorry, so M-A-D-D-E-R.
Yeah, with
Sorry, we actually need to spell out.
Yeah, sorry.
MATTERMOST. Matter most.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, yeah, Jason.
yeah, one thing looking at the UW's website seems to imply that Mattermost isn't actually available to students, it's available to faculty, researchers, and staff.
All right, we start, guys.
I have already created a Western Matter system for some stuff for students. I don't.
The university's Mattermost isn't even accessible to students, it's only for faculty and staff, so we should probably limit this to...
There seems to be anecdotal evidence that that is not the case.
Like, you mean the website.
Yeah.
I have created Mattermost instances for the states that I'm organizing, and I've been talking with the key person who's responsible for creating accounts for people, and he was like, yeah, it's good for things like that as well.
Okay, so we would have to talk to IT but IT is going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like the website is not up to date or
Okay.
it's not official.
I was going to say, in any case, the fence exec are staff, or university staff, so we can initiate that if that's the way we want.
Okay. So it sounds like we probably can make this work if we would like to. Would anyone have any objections to using Mattermost?
I mean, I prefer to use Slack considering I use it for everything else. It's just a little easier. I really don't care about post history. And for in a 2-year group chat with 8 other people on Slack, that is what I get the history limit issues. So I really don't think history limit's going to be too much of a problem. But
All right. Well, we'll make the straw poll: Slack versus Mattermost. Okay. So all in favor? Sorry. Someone has something. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess in this case, one thing about Mattermost that's different from Slack is you've said that people can use their Waterloo credentials, so they can just log in like that. So in Slack, you have to do account creation, and you have to verify it. And you don't know if it's a third party that's just making an email and trying to access it. So there's a security and convenience thing that might be part of Mattermost.
Well, with Slack, what happens is something together every 16 months and there's an addition that
All right. So let's say all in favor of Mattermost. Please raise your hands. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. That is less than half. Do we actually know how many people here?
There might be an extension.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, true. All abstaining. All right. So actually, that doesn't get goes through. That means there's fewer votes, right? Automatically. Yeah.
How many people go again?
Sorry. Okay. Raise your hands for abstaining. 1, 2, 3.
5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. It's just
Yeah. All right. So in that case, Mattermost is what we're going with. Would someone like to take charge of forming this?
I would just want to put forward an actual motion about
Yes.
this.
Okay. That'd be good.
I move that officers of council explore setting up a Mattermost chat system for councilors.
That sounds good. Do we have a seconder?
Sorry, can I rebut that to change the wording to not just
An amendment?
Yeah.
Do we need to second before we amend?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So second. Dion? All right. Go for it.
Amendment that we don't just explore setting up, that we actually do set up.
Sure. So you would like to task the officers or the executives of council?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I'd like to further add a second.
All right.
I'd also like to stipulate that for that actual. Sorry, I'm trying to do this as I go.
Yeah.
That is understood that no formal addition of items to the agenda or other formal motions can be processed via such chat system.
Okay. So just that it is informal. It is not decision making.
It's not that, and it's not a tool for putting items on meeting agendas either.
Yeah.
I just have a question, like why couldn't we message the officers of council with an agenda item through that versus like an email? I don't see what the...
Actually, this is a separate thing. I would just like agenda items as emails, just like for my own history. It's harder for people on Facebook.
Is that a matter of preference or a matter of procedure?
It's a matter of preference, but just as
That's why I'll be phrased to say no, just no formal decisions. No formal decisions.
It's also a matter of precedent. We usually submit agenda items to the council mailing list, which means they become public. So if you submitted one items and why, it will be public.
Okay.
And just as a matter of procedure, Jason, do you accept those amendments?
Yes.
The friendly okay. Savannah, are you okay?
Yeah. I'm just making some words happen. So we're
Yeah.
good.
Okay. As long as we're happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dictionary, thesaurus.
Okay, can I just read this out to make sure I've captured everything? Council tasks officers of council to explore and set up chats on Mattermost, but no formal decisions can be made in this medium.
That's good. Yeah.
I think the friendly amendment was that we removed the word explore.
Well,
It should be
it
a
says
task.
explore and set up now, so.
Oh,
Okay. Perfect. All right. So in that case, if the amendments were friendly, we can bring it to a vote. So all in favor of this motion? Okay. Really quickly, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So it's 18 in favor. All opposed? And all abstaining?
Aye.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, you would say? Sorry.
Any notable abstentions? Does anyone have a?
Yeah, I'll vote abstain.
Perfect. All right, so in that case, we can move on. Oh. Yeah. Okay, so next up we have the MC Air Quality Cost Assessment. That's going to be spoken to by Neon.
No, we didn't do the full suite of
No, you should.
I think another thing, sorry guys. Okay, so Seneca, this is you again. It's the Freedom of Information and Secrecy in Corporations, Government, Advocacy.
Okay, so you guys all got the link, I hope, that I sent out. PBC met literally right before our council meeting on a special meeting to make the amendments, because last week we were debating what some of the issues we had were. Richard can speak to that a little bit more. I think we made quite a few edits cutting out stuff that we thought was too operational. We moved stuff towards, we moved stuff as recommended for board procedure instead of being in policy if we thought it was too procedural. And we clarified a lot of the language to be both self-consistent and a little bit easier. So we also got rid of references to hours and just put everything in terms of business days for ease of staff and the executive.
So I guess I'll speak a little bit to that just so for everybody's information. Does everybody have it pulled up or have read or know about the new version of it?
Personal privilege, where is the email?
It should have been sent out as an email.
I sent an email this morning at probably about 12. If you do. Yeah, okay.
Can you just pull it up on the screen?
Yes, I can pull up my screen. That's a reasonable point. Yes.
I don't know what the term is, but since there was changes made very close to the meeting, is this an is this for discussion or is this for a decision? Because
Council referred the PBC to come back to council for approval at this meeting.
I guess my concern is that there hasn't, with the changes made this morning, there wasn't enough time to properly review any changes that have been made, but.
How do we feel about this as a whole as opposed to, though? Like, are people feeling like they have had time to review it or not really?
And I'd just like to apologize. We did meet in between council meetings, but the way that it worked out was, so there was a lot of debate last council meeting, and the debate continued during the first PPC meeting, and we realized that we needed more consultation and discussion. But the way that everybody's schedules worked out, we literally had, like, there wasn't enough, sorry, let me rephrase that. Not everybody was there until literally this morning. So I would tend to agree with everybody if you would like to push it. That is absolutely something that we can do, because I agree that, you guys have been.
It's a long document. It is long, it's detailed, so better off to just.
Okay, so would someone like to move to table this until the next meeting? All right, Ben, second. Okay. Josh, right?
Did we have a main mover and seconder in the first place?
That's
We
what
did not. Seneca, you move it? The original?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. All right. Okay.
Yeah, now we vote on the table.
First you can open the floor to debate and then motion to table.
Yeah,
Sorry, I actually
now we discuss the motion to.
Okay.
So should I speak to it?
Yeah.
So, like, councilors haven't been able to access the document due to this short notice being sent out. And we can't really be confident that we're doing our jobs in good faith if we're just voting on something we don't really know anything about.
Would someone like to speak to the, Matt or something, would you like to speak to why you would not like to table it? Or are you okay with that?
I'm not really opposed to tabling it. The only thing, council spent a lot of time doing it last time, so I know the council did see it last meeting and did debate it for about 45 minutes. A lot of changes were made, but they're mostly language clarification and editorial changes. I would say that it's reasonable to have more time to review it if that's what you guys want. I would also say though that PPC got tasked to clean it up, and we should trust our committees to operate effectively, but it's very much council's call, so.
Okay. Would you actually speak to it, or would you like?
Yeah, I was speaking to
Okay.
building on it as well. I mean, it was just since at 12:15 and the meeting started like at 12:45. That's really not a lot of time in the first place. Also, it is very detailed and there's a lot of like technical wording here, which I think, as you mentioned, it wouldn't be fair for us to say we're doing our jobs and representing students and we're only given 15 minutes to adequately review this meeting. And also, there are a lot of concepts. I mean, if I speak for myself, I wasn't here last meeting, right? Because I didn't come up with the role. And so, while I'm not sure it's an excuse per se, I don't think it adds to the point that it was debated last time. A lot of counselors just were able to present their first meeting today.
Yeah, sounds good. Jason, you're going to be the last one.
I'm just specifying in case anyone's not aware that this is the final meeting for the term, so tabling it inevitably puts it off till September. Besides that,
I didn't really need to sit
Sure, yeah.
So one thing about the meeting, how does we schedule when we're debating about meetings?
I thought we were still debating it.
I retract that.
It is, yes, we are still going to talk about it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So in that case, keeping in mind this may or may not be the last meeting, we haven't really decided yet for the term. I would like to bring it to a vote about whether or not we are tabling this motion. So all in favor of tabling this motion until, okay. So hands high, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in favor.
How does everybody vote online? Okay, just one.
All right, so that means 17 in favor. All opposed?
Oh, no, 18 online, sorry. 19. 20.
Right.
20 online.
Okay, and so then all opposed. All right, so 1, and then all abstaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Anyone want their vote noted?
Oh, sorry, Seneca was abstaining.
Okay. So I think that makes it 6 abstentions. 19. All right. Awesome. So in that case, Dion, we can move on to you and the MC air quality assessment. Oh, sorry.
So sorry, just before we move on as well, and because there were new counselors, I just wanted to invite everybody, if you have any questions or comments or anything, let anybody on PPC know. We'll, and we'll get your opinions.
Sounds good. So Dion, MC air quality cost assessment.
Yeah, I think mostly this is starting his report. This should be good. Alright, I think this is about the air quality testing from the perspective, and I think you covered that mostly during your executive report. So let's take a good look.
More than willing to entertain any questions that come up.
Okay. I'm taking that as no one has anything, we can move on. Perfect. So next up we have general orders. So we have a procedural amendments, and Savannah, whenever you're ready, in a rush.
So, MATES, one of our student services, is not. It's all good. I think it's mostly in here. It's not in our procedures right now, and it has been an active service for a few years, and so I was just hoping to officially put them in procedures. If there's any questions or concerns or comments, let me know. The information there was pulled straight from their words. Their own procedures and their description in the MOU we have with counseling services on what MATES does and is, and all of that information was kind of summarized in those 3 bullet points to mirror what the other services look like in the procedures.
Okay.
Policies.
Perfect. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Just a comment. I was on council when we actually approved it, so it's not like this came out of thin air. It was approved. It was just never added to council procedures.
Quick question. Is this the full mandate for this?
Is the full mandate for MATES? I think
It's not the, I've kind of summarized it a bit to make it fit, because it's about, the mandate itself is about 3 or 4 sentences long, so I've summarized it as best I could, but. Does that
Okay, just to make sure I'm not missing anything in the procedure.
No, this summarizes everything that's kind of outlined in documents and pulling different pieces, so.
Okay.
Okay. Cheers.
A general point of inquiry, just because this is being added now years after service created, when would be an appropriate time to put such an addition for the new racialized service?
I can comment on that maybe. We're still looking to craft the specific mandates and what is the service will look like. There's obviously been some direction provided by the students involved in the initial proposal and then again by council, but I'd say once there's a more set mandates and understanding what it'll look like, that would be the case. So we could probably revisit this again towards the end of the fall term, but if that's an okay timeline. Yeah.
All right, cool. Does anyone else have anything about this motion? Okay. In that case, Savannah, I ask for your motion again.
Yes, please.
Second, Matthew. All right. So all in favor of this motion? So actually, just all opposed or abstaining. I think it's unanimous. Okay. Nice. All right. So next up, we have the budget and appropriations. That's great.
Yeah, so in case you don't have another meeting, and also for ease of the timeline between council and board before the end of this term, I'd like council to approve the 2018 fiscal year budget by email or electronic vote. And I will be forwarding it to you guys beforehand so you can review it for 1 week. Me, myself, and the budget committee are working on it together, and that will be completed by the end of this week. It just makes things easier instead of calling a special meeting and trying to get a timeline to work out to balance between here and board and the budget committee with the term ending quick. So I thought it would be a good idea to do this. Any questions?
Yes. I would maybe ask that if anybody's going to ask me questions about the budget, that all councilors be CC'd on that. So that
Yeah, sure.
everybody's aware of the discussion.
For the whole discussion.
Sure.
Would we like to make that an actual amendment to the motion, or are you?
It's not really, I don't think it'd be that.
Yeah,
just like a point
of yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second the main motion.
Sure. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, actually, with respect to the motion, I think we should allow private questions from people, questions be submitted privately, but the questions and answers should then be made public. Because if someone wants to send a message to someone on budget committee and say, hey, what's going on here, if it's a clerical thing, I don't think I think that's a pretty steep thing to request. But I think that if as long as the answers and questions get submitted in like a digest to council, would that suffice? Just to minimize the amount of emails for every single question?
I think that's totally reasonable also. Then should we add that as an amendment to this motion? Is that?
I'm using, whatever makes you guys feel most comfortable.
So then I would say, I would suggest an amendment that that after a 1 week review question period, all the PPOF will create a summary of council's inquiries to be sent at the end of the 1 week review period.
Is that doing that?
Yeah, he was just asking me when I would like that, which makes sense. For that to be at the end of the week and then and present it all together. If that makes sense. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe if there's something that's coming up to say, a zero was displaced, 50 people were messaged, you should be sending something before the weekend, so you don't have 50 more messages. Also, a second commencement that's included.
Okay. And it's a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
I'd say just one question is if questions come up due to questions, we should have also a time frame for questions following the digest, if that kind of makes sense, or is that?
Questions about questions?
Yeah, if someone's like, oh, that's a great question, and then it sparks something else in their mind about the budget, I was wondering what people's thoughts are, maybe if we have like a 2-day post-digest kind question period. I don't know what Kurt's thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
You guys want that? I feel like most of it will be discussed with the budget committee, but of course we have to all look at it as council, so I want that 2 extra day question period. Sure.
Okay. It doesn't have to, but.
Wait, yeah. Yes, Dion?
Yeah, so my concern with the online approval budget is that if council wants to do the raising each line, then the question is how can that effectively be done via
So you repeat the question?
So if council wanted to do a line by line analysis of the budget, how would that be done? It seems like it would get pretty messy.
Sorry, you're saying if there's an issue with the line.
So my concern is that I believe in the budget process, council can vote whether to analyze the budget line by line. And if council wants to pursue that process, that seems like it would be hard to do so for online periods.
Wouldn't that be what the digest is for?
But that is a summary, it's not.
I think what he's asking is, so like, if we want to have a whole debate about the budget, that would be hard to do online and email because it won't allow for adequate time for people to go off each other's points. And only having 1 week plus the 2 extra days would not be enough time to actually discuss the budget as an entire. So I think that's what you're
I'm sorry, Matt.
If I can provide some historical context for how council has done this in the past, usually if we're looking at this kind of line by line level of scrutiny, that's something that the budget committee has been supposed to do. Normally, if the budget were to come to council, it would generally be up down without an extensive line by line debate. So I suppose maybe the hope would be if we were trying to replicate that in all electronic process. Messages would be safer, all of the most glaring concerns.
And potentially have the option to vote, or we take a vote about whether or not we actually want to vote on the budget, or whether we would like to push it and go do the budget line by line at the council meeting after. If that's.
My biggest concern is we just need to have the budget accepted by council before I present it to the board, which must be done before the end of this term.
Okay.
So that's why it obviously depends if we are having another council meeting, which we'll be discussing. Also, that's pushing, if we do have the council meeting late July, then that's pushing another board meeting for mid-August, which is kind of tough for people's timelines.
Yeah. So yeah.
And so this kind of goes back to Seneca's point earlier on trusting the committees to do their due diligence. Obviously, if there's concerns with budget lines and things like that, like bring it up and bring it to people's attention. And I guess I just kind of leave it at that. If we do have a committee who's doing that job already and making sure to be very due diligent around asking the questions, asking us to check in with our full-time staff, it might be a good opportunity to trust the committee to make sure that they're doing their due diligence. And if you do have concerns, to bring it forward to someone on budget committee and they can kind of do that deep dive. Obviously, that's like whatever you guys want, but that would be kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, so knowing that, I mean, also there is always the opportunity to call an emergency meeting based on, like, if you decide that we would rather go through the budget line by line, you don't want to do the online vote after you have the opportunity to look at that budget, that is an option. Just so that we do know. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
Seneca wanted to bring something up.
Okay.
Just if I just want to add that the council rejects the vote over
Sorry, can you go cut out of it there? Can you start again?
Okay, you know what? I'll read it out.
Council, yeah, please read it out.
He just wanted to amend that. Be it further resolved that if council rejects the budget, then EPOF will call a special meeting of council for approval of the prepared budget.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Actually,
Friendly amendment.
perfect. Cool. So does anyone else have anything they'd like to say before we vote on this? Okay. So we're voting on the full thing with the amendment that we can call, like, if there are objections, we will call an emergency council meeting to go through the budget.
Samantha, would you actually mind reading out the full motion as it was said?
Yeah, I have written it in 2 separate ways, so let me. Be it resolved that council will approve the 2018 fiscal year budget by email or electronic vote after 1 week review in question period, after which the VPOF will create a summary of all questions and answers to send to council and allow for a 2-day review follow-up question period. If council rejects the budget, then the VPOF will call a special meeting of council to approve the budget.
Sorry, I think just also, it should be an emergency meeting, not a special meeting.
Oh, okie dokie.
Is that friendly?
Is the procedure actually dictate emergency meetings?
The procedure says emergency meeting, not special meeting, sorry.
Perfect. So that is the motion you're voting on. All in favor of this motion? All opposed or abstaining? And you guys online, are we unanimous?
It seems, okay.
Unanimous. Perfect. That does that. So next up we have board referred items, which Seneca, is brought forward by Seneca. Unless you want me to read it. Seneca.
And then that's okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the board of directors would like input from council on who should be eligible for the councilor director positions. So just to be clear, membership of council is composed of elected councilors, society presidents, commissioners appointed by the executive, the 4 executives themselves, and non-voting, and additionally in a non-voting capacity, the chairs of any council committees. So there's 2 council director seats on the board of directors, and the board was curious who council thought should be eligible for these seats among the members of council.
I would suggest that it should only be elected councilors who are eligible for the board membership as a councilor.
Yeah.
I would suggest it's not only elected councilors, but also appointed councilors.
Sorry.
Okay. That would be not just elected, but also appointed councilors.
Acclaimed.
Acclaimed councilors count as elected councilors, yes, just so you know. Because you were elected, you just were elected with no opposition.
Now.
So I guess some of the main things that precipitated the discussion was that we have recently added society presidents as voting members of council, and whether we wanted those society presidents to be eligible for those positions.
So and to follow that up, knowing that not all society presidents are on for the whole year, I think is to follow that up. And some are elected, but it's a different president in one term, a different president in another term, et cetera, could be the case, so.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, commissioners, the commissioners of, can you hear me?
One more time.
Keep in mind that commissioners are appointed and not on the board as well, so.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Okay. Well, this was just a discussion item. Sorry?
Can I offer that council, just based on seems like there's consensus, based on what Ben said and Lenny said, would it be fair then to just offer to answer board's questions so that we have something to give back to board, that council feels only those councilors elected in the claim should be eligible for council director positions? Is that the vibe that council had?
That seems to be the vibe.
Is council okay with that statement being referred to board to answer the question?
Sorry, I'm not okay with that statement. Can we strike the word and acclaim since we said that elected means to be acclaimed? So if we add and acclaim, it would suggest otherwise.
What? Sorry?
So not elected and acclaimed.
I can't hear you.
So he's suggesting that we strike out the phrase "and acclaimed," as we're saying that acclaimed councillors are elected, so it's sort of redundant and suggests otherwise.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was saying claims for your
Clarification.
benefit,
Yeah.
because the concern raised earlier. Yes, elected refers to both, I can pass on with just elected.
Okay, so hi, I'm Thompson. I'm not Philip Dragala. This kind of happened because of me. So I am the awesome president coming into fall and winter. And earlier I was going to run for council seat, but in AHS we only have 2. So with all of that happening, I didn't want to take a seat away from someone in the spring, and then in the fall and winter we have to figure that out. I just want to speak to that. Yeah, this is an issue coming from me.
So just to be clear, can you hear me?
Yep.
Just to be clear, this will take effect this year, it will be taking effect next year. So total 6 will be effective.
Okay. Perfect, so we're good to answer the board's question saying that it's going to be elected councillors. Okay. Sorry guys. So next up we have coming from our board it's about council teleconferencing. And I think that was what board was. Yeah.
So I guess I was going to talk about this motion. So I just wanted to talk about hopefully improving the way we do remote conferencing with people that are running meetings. So right now we're using Google Hangouts, which for most of it is issues with it because we have basically one computer with a microphone in another room. So people whether you can really speak. We have to be really loud if you can hear us. So the idea behind this motion is basically making it easier for people, for customers who want to pull up next term, for example, to call in meetings. For example, like most customers next term are not going to be here. So one issue with Google Hangouts is that there's a 10 user maximum per call, I believe.
25, I think when I checked this morning.
That's 25 now?
Okay, I believe so. I think it's 150 for a chat and 25 for a video call.
Okay, so the jobs, that's our first 10.
Yes.
So one thing I was thinking about is having everybody sign into the chat, and so we can actually speak out to the microphone with understanding ourselves. So the motion basically we want have a motion to make the cross assessment to see if there's other alternatives we can do instead of Google Hangouts, or maybe stick Google Hangouts but change out the way we do it in meetings. So I have a memo that's already on the agenda. Where I basically talk about some possible alternatives. I haven't done a very thorough research on it, but there's solutions that I call basically the Zoom LMS. These are paid solutions.
And I think, sorry, you guys, this is the last page of the agenda.
It's very last page, yeah. I know that, for example, Zoom is a program that I use in my previous course, and it's very good to come to the company. And I believe it's $50 for one host to create a meeting and ask anybody who's joining us one. One advantage about Zoom is that we use it for screen sharing very effectively. So if you ask me to show up on screen sharing, you can see it. And I think it'll be very slow in the future as well. Bring things out to be there.
Can I, yes, sir?
Yeah.
I would definitely express my sincere support for better telecom software, and particularly getting the equipment. It would be nice if every single person sitting at the table had one of the microphones, like it's UW Senate and UW Board of Governors, so you can actually hear the person when they're speaking. So I don't have to ask them 7 times to repeat what he's saying. It's something like that. In my mind, is a one-time investment that you then write off over the course of a few years, but it's something you can use for basically ever, for the equipment's lifetime, right? So, and not being able to participate easily in conference call and committees kind of disenfranchises anybody from co-op or anybody lay on leaflets or whatnot. So
Jason.
Yeah. So I say the issue as someone who spent like the winter term attending council committees working, I'd say it's less about software and more about the actual like microphones and stuff. Personally, I see like a software solution that basically involves everyone's devices becoming a microphone is not going to work, either because of reverberation or just because of technical issues with everyone's different devices. So I think the real solution is like proper microphone equipment. And on that spirit, since the mention was made of what the volumes, governing bodies do, I was wondering, is there actually a possibility that we could actually hold these meetings in the necessary rooms in Needle Hall that have such equipment?
It's amending your vow.
Yeah.
That we have lost.
One of the biggest concerns from the secretary was that they don't trust students using.
Wait, what?
I was just saying how, like, Matt was alluding to the fact that we fought this for many years and we've lost. And I was just expressing some concerns from the secretariat that they don't really trust students. That's it.
Wait, sorry, the entire call like froze up for a couple seconds.
Oh, that's okay. We were talking about, well, Jason was saying how, maybe we could just book out the spaces that the university uses to hold meetings.
Oh, that's a good joke. They'll never let us do that.
So there we are.
Kurt, do you have anything to say about the budget and how realistic this seems?
Actually, I was already talking to our IT department about this because this is also an issue for our board with a bunch of people on campus. I mean, on conferences. And so they're already on the works of doing this. They're getting some research done to look at other softwares, like you were saying. Skype for Business was something that they were looking at, which is at no cost for conference call and video calling, screen sharing. And for the microphones and those devices, that's something that they want to do additional research on because with the 25 to 30 members, that is quite a cost for bringing in all that speaker and microphone and hardware. So right now I talked to them about it, they're looking into it for like numbers, but just off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to give you a cost, right?
I have a question for Kurt as well. Where is the budget for committee? Is there a budget for council? Where's that money even come from, like in effects?
So for council, it's part of our student fees and it falls under the president's purview.
Alright. Yes, John?
Just a quick point of clarification, I think. It's possible to, I guess, amend the motion to add a federal law about looking into hardware equipment specifically.
Sure, you can ask that as an amendment and, is that a friendly amendment then, or do you actually? Friendly amendment, okay.
Sure, what is the amendment?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so to,
Sorry, what was the amendment?
1 second, say it a bit louder.
yeah, so the amendment is to investigate options and to investigate options and appropriate funding for funding AV equipment for council meetings.
I don't know if this is out of order, but the actual motion just says explore means of teleconferencing and you have to talk about it.
Can you specifically use that hardware? Because I think that's a bigger issue, having microphones and speakers in our options.
Okay, so what you're saying is you would like an amendment that makes it so the last line reads, instead of a new means, it says like alternative like software and hardware solutions.
Yeah, it's breaking it up into specifically software.
Okay. And that's a friendly amendment, sorry. Okay. So did you hear that?
No, when Dion spoke up, it was just chopped off. I know the irony of this problem during a telecom discussion, but it's very difficult to hear.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Seneca, the amendment is, instead of saying new means, it's explore alternative software and hardware options. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, can I, oh yeah, sorry, is that a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yes, friendly amendment.
Can I offer another amendment?
Sure.
Can budget committee create funding for capital investment by the executive on better equipment based on the results of that cost assessment?
So sorry, I think you were a little choppy in that, but you're saying an amendment that we ask the budget committee to look for funding?
No, to appropriate funding.
Oh, okay.
Write it down, write it down.
Matt, yeah.
So I'm going to have a quick comment to that insofar that I think it would be a little premature to have budget committee appropriate funding before we know what options and what costs we're looking for.
And it sounds to me like if Kurt's already looking into it, what we're really doing is just waiting until someone gets back to us, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, Elizabeth, Matt, you can't just put money out on the out of thin air. If we build the budget now, we set aside money for if we want to do this, and if we decide later that we're not going to do it, then the money goes unspent. And if we decide to do it, then there's a lot of money in the budget to pay for it.
Okay.
I'm fine with that being in their territory.
Okay. So sorry, so Lenny, how would you feel about that amendment? Yeah, it's friendly? Okay. Do you have it?
No, did Seneca write it out?
You didn't write it.
So could you type out your amendment, please?
I'm going to mix it up.
Perfect, thank you. I think he's gonna type it out. Oh, perfect.
I'll read it.
Or just. Okay. So in that case, Lenny has motioned this.
You check.
Sorry, you motioned it. Do we have a second? All right. Dion. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Yeah.
Did we have the motion ready?
Yes, we just okay. We'll wait.
We're just waiting for it to come. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
I can read the first half of it and then wait for the budget part if you guys want.
Wait. Okay. Talk among ourselves. Oh.
Is he sending this one?
Be it further resolved.
Did you guys get the motion?
Yes.
Okay, folks.
All right, guys. So Savannah's gonna read us back the motion before we vote on it.
Okay.
There we go.
Council tasks the officers of council to, so, sorry, question. If it's already being done, is it still tasked to the officers of council?
Should we leave it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Council tasks the officers of council to perform a cost assessment of new software and hardware options.
Wait, hold on. Point of inquiry.
Sure.
Should that not be the executive board or the staff? Because it's already being undertaken by the IT department and Kurt, that really shouldn't come to us because we don't know operational costs and equipment costs as well as the people who use it on a daily basis. I don't want to not go to the officers of council. I'd rather go to the executive and staff.
Okay, so you're just asking us to amend the motion so that instead of it being tasked to the officers of council, it's tasked to the executives. Okay, so it's tasked to Kurt or to the executive finance. Is that right, Senator? Yeah.
Is that friendly?
Yes.
Okay, alrighty. Let's try this again, sorry. No. Council tasks the VP Operations and Finance to perform a cost assessment for new means of alternative software and hardware options for telecom meetings for those calling in. Budget Committee to appropriate funding in the 2018 budget for capital investment for teleconferencing, and that ISC will approve the use of such funding pending executive staff cost assessment of hardware and software options.
Good.
I feel that this should not fall under the council budget, and it should go under IT's budget, because then it could help out with more than just council with all these the hardware and speaker systems. And IT budget does not fall under the budget that is presented to council as a confidential budget, so I feel like that should be discussed with the board, not budget committee.
So are you suggesting an amendment?
Yes, yeah, that'd be an amendment to change it for discussion with the board.
Council recommends the board set aside money for point of aid free, I guess, would that change the ownership over the equipment for use by council?
You know, it feds equipment and yeah. And I know they seem to want us to take precedence over it.
Okay. So how would you feel about that amendment?
Chair.
Okay.
So we're removing the budget committee stuff that Seneca sent and switching it to council recommends to board they review any opportunities related to teleconferencing.
Is that,
Yeah?
Okay, question.
yes.
Why doesn't the money just come out of the government's budget? Rather than take money away from IT to do their job?
So I think it's just the governance's budget instead of IT's budget.
So what's his reasoning? Seneca, what's your reasoning for council over IT?
Well, IT uses their budget for operations. We could appropriate funding from government's budget to allow for capital investment, so the IT doesn't have to spend their money. I just stretch their money one way.
I think he's saying we can appropriate funding and then IT doesn't have to use their budget because their budget might be better spent on something else. I think is what he's saying.
Yeah, I know, but if for hardware that could be used in multiple departments of feds, why would we specify it's like appropriate under council's budget? That's how I see it.
Senator, did you hear that?
Yes, sorry, this goes to my second one. I guess I'm breaking up. If you're doing capital investment, the money is coming, like council's putting up the money to pay for the equipment, so that IT's budget isn't stretched thinner.
And I think Kurt hears that, but he's just saying we're not going to be the only group using it. Doesn't it make sense to have just other feds here?
Seneca, are you saying that we should be moving money from the council budget to the IT budget?
Yes. So the budget is one thing.
Sorry, Savannah?
We also don't know how much it's going to cost yet, so I feel like trying to determine this now is premature, like Kurt was saying earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's yeah.
So if we have it go to, oh, sorry, Matt.
Okay. Also, just one thing. So, how do we all feel about making it so we don't specify the funding source yet, and we can kind of cross that bridge when we come to it? Is that Seneca?
So yes, but what will the motion be?
What does it read?
Alrighty.
Council tasks VP Operation and Finance to perform a cost assessment of alternative software and hardware options for of telecom meetings for those calling in. And council recommends to board they review financial opportunities related to teleconferencing.
Any questions, comments, concerns about that?
Yeah, no, I prefer my original motion. I'm more than happy to strike budget committee and replace it with board of directors in the 22 fiscal year budget. But I want the money to be appropriated before council votes on a budget, before board votes on a budget.
But I think we do have to figure out what the kind of cost is before we appropriate the budget. Like, I think that's this point is just like figuring out what kind of funding we would need before we actually.
That's not how budgeting works. You budget money.
Yes, but we're not budgeting money yet. We're just figuring out the cost. We could even not move forward with it once we know the cost, but this isn't budgeting yet.
I mean, yes, it is, because we're in the middle of the fiscal year.
Okay, okay.
It seems like we haven't even figured out what software we're going to use. We haven't decided whether or not the software we're going to use is even going to be paid for, whether or not it's going to be free. It seems like we're jumping to the gun. Like, we have not figured out at all whether or not it's going to cost any money. It doesn't make sense to start appropriating money towards it if it's not going to cost anything. So I'd say just hold off on appropriating, figure out what it is, and then once we have an idea, then we go into the
the Board of Directors appropriate funding in the 2018 fiscal year budget for capital investment for teleconferencing and will approve the use of such funding pending executive staff cost assessment on hardware and software options. So.
So I guess the question is this a friendly amendment? If it's not, we can vote on it. If it is, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Richard, if you want me to.
No, never mind. Sorry, that was friendly?
It's not. It's not.
That was not friendly.
Alright, so do we have someone to second this amendment, and then we can vote on this amendment? Alright, so Ben, you're going to second this amendment?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're now going to vote on this amendment.
No, discussion.
Okay, sorry. Discussion about this amendment.
Call the question.
Sorry?
Call the question. He gets
So,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, listen.
the budgeting process works as you set aside money to do something, then you cost assess how you do that thing, and then use the most financially prudent and or most efficient option or the most effective option and spend that money, and then at the end of the year, you compare your actuals to your budget, and you're supposed to operate within your budget limitations. So budget needs to be set. So what I'm asking here in this motion is that the board of directors appropriates funding in whatever budget they want, like whatever portion of the budget they want, because board of directors approves both the council budget and the restricted budgets. So the board of directors uses where the money comes from. That they appropriate funding in the 2018 fiscal year for capital investment and teleconferencing, and will approve the use of the funding pending the cost assessment. So this solves both concerns. We need to cost assessment first before we approve it, but it also allows the budgeting so that when council gets a budget and when board gets a budget, they're voting on money being spent that will get spent.
So Seneca, do you have an idea of how much you would like to appropriate?
That's not for this body to determine. That's why I said the board of directors will appropriate funding based on the cost assessment for hardware and software options that the executive staff do. That is not for this body, or shouldn't be this body doing.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Alright, so would we like to read back the amendment that we are voting on? Or are we all clear on what it is?
Yes, please.
Read it back? Okay. So would you mind?
Resolved that the Board of Directors appropriate funding in the 2018 budget for capital investment for teleconferencing and will approve the use of such funding pending executive staff cost assessment of hardware and software options.
Okay. So all in favor of this amendment? Okay. So we're voting in favor of the amendment that we will put aside the money or start looking. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so that's all in favor. Actually, that's the majority. Yes, so that's majority, so this amendment passes. So now, unless there's any more conversation about the motion as a whole, now including this amendment, we can read it back and vote on that.
Doesn't this change the amendment? So
this amendment changes the motion.
Okay, yeah, but so now that motion is no longer relevant because they took out officers of council. So is this not the full motion anymore?
I don't propose it is because it still say, yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, because it covers takes out the officers of council and the means is now the software, hardware, and then
The
all
one
this
thing,
stuff.
okay, it includes the investigating portion. So I don't think that was a good consensus amendment.
Oh yeah, the
That was not vote for the amendment.
Okay. It just seems like that it encompassed every other change that we made.
We already agreed to change the officer of council to the POF and staff.
Yeah. Sorry, did anyone else want to speak? Okay, yes?
Can I just add a very small amendment, which I hope is friendly, just to clarify that, or to wrap our discussion here, which center more on mice or software solutions, because I feel like currently the motion reflects both hardware and software solutions to be explored, and I think we kind of came to some consensus that we would prefer more mics just to get our voice out there.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we push towards a hardware solution as opposed to just investigating the cost of all solutions?
Yes, or a hardware solution over a software solution.
Yeah.
And I disagree with that, just because we haven't explored it at all yet, right? So we haven't even explored software options, just with that's not the part issue. It just seems like we haven't figured out whether or not it's going to be software alone or software and hardware, whether or not we need mics alone, whether or not we need mics alongside software. So I don't think we should be specified one or the other. We should just leave it open and then go from there based on what the what the assessment is.
Okay. So it's okay. All right. So in that case, unless anyone has anything else to say, we can maybe get Savannah to bring this back to full motion and then we can vote on it.
So,
oh, sorry, Lenny.
Just a general question for anyone who might know, how long might it take for us to get such new AV equipment?
To physically order it or find out about cost?
Like we just want the AV equipment. How long would that general process take? Like a month, a year?
So it sounds like I should just finish looking into it. Kurt might have the best estimate on what kind of time like that.
Like, we'll have IT research. That comes down to a week probably, and then determine if that amount is worth for all the hardware. We can order it and it'll be another week. So it's not a long process at all. It's just making sure it's worth getting that hardware for the cost.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Then, Savannah, would you mind reading back the full motion?
All right, so I'm just going to be honest, I'm a little confused about the full motion because the amendment that Seneca provided wraps up everything that we've talked about into one. So is that going to be the new motion?
No, I think that would be it for the result, and then just have it stay. And there might be some redundancy, but I don't. That might be the best solution, unless anyone has any objections.
Okay.
It is a B for the result.
Okay. So then I also have a follow-up question. The part about budget committee appropriating funding was a friendly amendment, so is that removed?
No, that's.
Yeah,
the unfriendly amendment replaced.
Okay, just want to make sure. Just want to make sure. All right. Council tasks the VP Operations and Finance to perform a cost assessment for alternative software and hardware options of telecom meetings for those calling in. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors appropriate funding in the 2018 fiscal year budget for capital investment for teleconferencing and will approve the use of such funding pending executive staff cost assessment of hardware and software options.
Okay. Does anyone have any issues with that, or are we going to bring this to vote? Perfect. So all in favor? Perfect. All opposed or abstaining? That's unanimous then. I think we're about there. Good. So that passed unanimously. So next up, we have the something brought forward about Fed's bus services that Lenny is going to speak to.
Yeah, so this service is related, this motion is related to FedBus. Before it created it, I had some other concerns, but then was informed by Keon that there was actually a separate website for FedBus that addressed those concerns. Then this motion became basically, there are two FedBus websites, one for ordering the tickets, and a separate one for indicating the location of these bus stops. However, there's no link or any reference that there are two existing websites. So the motion would request that we merge both websites into a single website so that students will not be confused about which one to visit. So that would be the first point. The second point is that there are Google Map markers currently displaying the pickup locations. However, these markers are based on general location as opposed to specific actual pickup locations.
Yes.
I'll second the main motion.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone to talk about this? Yeah.
Yeah, full disclosure, I work at Turnkey, so we often deal with this FedBus thing. And my sort of experience having worked at Turnkey for a little over a year now is that, so if you go to the FedBus website to buy the tickets, there's things on the side which offer FedBus home, FedBus, info, blah, blah, blah. Now, I just want to caution to say that there is actually a link between the first website and the second, right? So if you go to this where you buy a ticket, on the side where it says FedBus info, you then click on it, it actually shows where the markers are. So it is connected, but I agree with you that students don't have to know that, because we often get calls from people saying, hey, look, I'm at the stop, I have no idea where the bus is, blah, blah, blah. So I agree we should merge the pages, right? So I'm in favor of that. And having, again, worked at Turnkey, people that's not giving a lot of credit to university students, but just making it something a bit hard to sort of teach that students.
I work in church as well, so we do get a lot of students calling to ask exactly where it is. I think maybe instead of saying that you could also be changed to like bus locations.
Yeah.
So it's more precise. Like I said, making it a one page would be very harder because once funding comes, the whole page is full of like times and dates. But you are right on like the Google Maps marker, it literally just shows you the city, like the sort of not one location. But it does, for example, on the McAllen Scarborough, it just say the stop is the McAllen subway stop on the corner of McAllen. So they try to explain it as like as specifically as possible, but perhaps the Google Maps markers can be more precise as well.
Sorry, Kurt, and then we'll go back to Josh, and then, yeah.
Yeah, so I talked to IT as well about the couriers for pickup spots, and they're actually working on that exact location and even to open up Google Street View to see where it can be. So that's in the process right now. After you have up the agenda. So IT's already working on that. I guess our main thing to discuss right now would be if we want to create it as one website or not, because IT can make that happen. It'll take a bit over a week for development and testing, but from people working firsthand and turnkey, this is nice insight to know if it's actually worth it. Like it's not to make that happen.
So like again, the main thing for me, and it's not because I work there now, it'd be harder for me. It's just having looked at the page multiple times a day, to realize that it is kind of better to have it divided. I think when you look at the page and it says FedBus info, that doesn't really help with a lot of insight, right? So I think if we might change it from saying FedBus info to have a very clear marker saying, you know, click here for map locations or whatever, that might just make it a bit easier.
Yeah, I can get that updated.
And again, it might just be easier for the IT guys to sort of design that, but it'll also be easier for students to not have one gigantic page if at the very top you just had a bar or you know, a marker that said click here for maps, right? And because again, I get the point of it, we often have students, you know, panic because they miss the bus or whatever. This would help to solve that, but merging the pages itself just might make it a bit too cluttered for students to buy tickets, and then we should be sure that they're right.
Okay, so yes, and then the.
Actually, I think that this amendment might be a little confusing. When you say a single website, it actually means probably you mean one domain, right? So under fedbus.feds, right? Rather than the same page. So in a domain there are pages, and in this case we have different pages per thing. I think that we can keep them on different pages, right? Which that way it prevents a clutter problem. Rename the links for going to that page, and maybe think about putting them in the same domain, right? And maybe we can amend that clause to make it more clear.
That's
Okay, so would someone like to phrase what they would like the amendment to be?
Can we rename FedBus info into something like FedBus schedules and location, or pickup location? So something more clear that relates to location.
So you're suggesting changing the domain name?
Not the domain name, but the link name, FedBus info, where it leads you to it, so that the title of that, if we can change it into something that provides more information. For example, location.
And also to make it more prominent, right? Because it's merged in with the other like random stuff. So to also try to make the maps page more prominent in the sidebar where you're looking at the various options.
And I see what you mean, because if you click on FedBus info, it goes from like fedbus.feds.ca to feds.ca, so that's what you do that. It takes you to a different website.
Yeah.
So they could just have that posting on fedbus.feds.ca, so it's like two different websites.
Okay.
It's technically still the same website, but rather than in different sections, I guess. So
Yeah.
can we?
Okay.
So maybe if I can try to attempt to make such an amendment / motion, maybe something like be resolved that on the existing FedBus website posted on the feds.ca domain, we change the link currently called FedBus info into FedBus schedules and pickup locations. That's point one. Point two, we transfer the other FedBus website location into the one located on the feds.ca domain. And 3, we changed the layout, the graphical layout of the one currently on the Waterloo domain to be consistent with the one currently on the feds.ca domain.
Could you type those out and send them just so I can put them in? But that, yeah. Yeah.
Comment. This would actually be a case where something like Madam Laws would work well. During our council meetings, for example, when we want to make a very long amendments, someone can type it out, or they need to share documents to the group. I think this would be something useful to have, because not everyone's going to join the Hangout, at least currently. But if everyone has a Mattermost account, they can just log in.
And the way we've actually had it in the past as well is if someone sends me an amendment, I can go. But yes,
I think I caught it.
Oh,
maybe slightly not worded the same way, but let me know if this captures it. Council task sorry. Council task VP Operations and Finance to work towards hosting all FedBus information on feds.ca, rename link of FedBus info into FedBus schedule location on feds.ca, and change the layout to make it more accessible.
Is that, we good with that?
Excellent. Can you like email it? Sorry, I didn't say it. Just like,
Yeah, if you send it to me, I can put it up, whichever's easiest.
yeah, just like read that your text. Because I also want to include the word prominent, not just like accessible, because again, it's worded, right? If you've never seen the other pages, you don't know which one's where. So I think making more prominent will be a very important.
I added that at the end, so make it accessible and prominent.
Yeah.
It has been revealed that there's actually 3 websites, not just fedbus.feds.ca, which is the current one used for purchasing, but also one on viewwaterloo.ca and another one on feds.ca. So can you imagine?
Merge all the,
all FedBus websites into one domain, and then go to the things about maps and. I mean, just FedBus.feds.ca. Because it's also the one that students know the most, right? It's the one that they want to the most, so I think it would be the easiest one to just close everything in.
And you can also incorporate the line about screenshots, because we've been actually accepting screenshots
For a while. Yeah, it's just not a
It never said,
I guess we usually don't mind as long as you have your watermark and then you have those screenshot, it doesn't matter.
So were you saying that the URL one is a technical website? Because I like that I would prefer for FedBus to be promoted for URL to be like, hey, there's also this type of bus system that brings you to specific locations. Some people might not think of looking at Feds like for people starting off, right? I feel like there should still be like a hyperlink of some sort to bring them to the one page. I don't think it should be two.
May I propose instead of a hyperlink that does a real one redirect so that when they visit that website, it automatically goes to the feds one. To avoid that implications.
Okay, guys, here's the amendment, how the amendment is phrased.
Can we put up the original? Is this striking the original, or is this just
This is an amendment to the original, so I can copy in the original as well.
But is it added to the original and just replaced?
Yeah, I thought it was replacing the first.
Oh, we're replacing.
Like it's replacing the first vehicle.
Yeah, I think so it's not an amendment, it's a replace.
I think that's what it is.
Okay, yeah, that works. I just gotta make that change.
Yeah.
So we're removing this.
And yeah, we'll take the vote.
So it says to work towards having feds.ca host all Fed bus information. Can we change that towards having fedbus.feds.ca?
Okay, I can write that in. Yeah. Sorry.
We're actually talking about that, and we're wondering if it's better to just have it under the feds, because then all the students, that's the website, that's somewhere we keep more prominent and accessible to students who might not know about it. Because one thing that's actually being talked about is whether or not the federal service is necessary, but it's actually not making that much of a difference. It's like the same students who are using it. So if you want to make it more prominent, you have to post it on the website that students will visit more frequently rather than like its own. I'm not that techy, so I don't know.
We just have like links from links on various different websites talking about it. Alright? Because there are some students who are just not used to us, right? And there are other students who do use it a lot, and it's the primary means of just getting to and from, right? So just trying to make the sort of eventual service more well known, but also trying to make that maps more well known. Because most students who use FedBus don't have like tickets, they just know where the maps are, right? So making the maps part specifically more prominent, and then on top of that, we can do Fed services. Federal services shows
Matt.
On top of that, we can do Fed services. Federal services shows
Matt.
I just want to drill down a little bit to sort of the original issue being getting the information across in terms of locations and ticketing. I think that, put words in Kurt's mouth if he wants to disagree with me, that we've heard a lot about what direction people want to go. At this point, I would ask whether people would be comfortable going with this sort of general level, eschewing sort of the specificity and allowing Kurt and the staff to figure out the best way to achieve these kind of general directions that we put in here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for this model, we should focus on being specific and allowing people to understand where these links are taking us, what info we have about FedBus, and promoting FedBus should be a separate issue that we can maybe discuss at a different time after you guys explore that issue.
Yeah.
What I think I would say is, let's keep the motion and the amendments more open for myself and the Fed staff to explore how we can tackle it the best way to have the one website. You know, we don't need to know I don't know what Lenny said, 301 something. Like that, it's just a necessary conversation right now. We can just make it for a better, prominent, and accessible website, right? I don't think we have to go into so many specifics. That's what IT is for. That's why I have the web developer, and we kind of get with it. So.
Okay. Sure. So feel free to talk, and then I'd like us to like take a look at this and decide where we're going. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so since we seem to be like moving on from the technical side of the discussion, while we have that up right there, it says exploring using Google Maps markers, and we had some discussion around here about Google Street View. So can we also add exploring using Google Maps markers or Google Street View screenshots to indicate your location? Because once you see a real photo of a real spot, then that's way more measured than a marker.
That's what they're already doing. So I think we just did it. Google Maps is, I think Google Maps is okay enough. Because Street View is part of Google Maps.
Yeah.
Again, they're going really specific.
It's not really a marker, but sure.
We still have to do Google Street View just to add that extra local businesses. But even
if you guys really want to, I just know they're already working on it.
Again, with going back to what we actually want to achieve, not putting it in there doesn't do the work for being done.
So I
not putting it in there or not having in general, not having something in motion doesn't mean that it's not going to be done.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so in the interest of making this less specific, can we amend the amendment to task the operations plans to work towards having one website to host all FedBus?
Yeah. Does anyone directions to be changing instead of it having fence bus CA, just having one website? Okay. Does anyone else have any issues with this as it currently reads? All right, there are 3. So we go left to right, 1 to 3.
A small change. It says bring out the Fed bus link. Is it link Fed bus?
Sorry, is this not big enough?
Yeah, I can't. It's a bit small. I can see that.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's a little better. There's small. Oh, and rename the link Fed bus info. Can we change that to let's see. Rename link Fed bus info to be more clear?
Reduce the link.
Like, as in, because we want to rename it for it to be more clear, I think it would be good to include that.
What about renaming the fence bus link?
Fed bus info,
Fence bus
info link.
Fence bus info link to be more clear. Yeah, so like,
So could you can put quotations around Fed's bus info link to be more clear, yeah.
You want quotes?
Yeah.
Okay, like this?
Yeah, there. And link to be more clear, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, there's more words after link to be more clear.
Okay. And yeah, did you guys, that's it?
I was just gonna ask, do these 2 amendments then replace the original? motion?
That's what we're looking at, right? That's agreeable to you, Lynn?
Yes, I'll go, if I can mention, how about we change the word, rename the Fed bus info link to be, rename the link currently called Fed bus info.
Sure. Rename the link currently called.
And the Fed bus, it should be Fed bus. And
That work?
one word is and one more backspace. To be more clear. And then can we say something like, for example, Fed bus pickup locations?
No, I don't think so.
And also for the last part, and change the layout to make it more accessible and prominent. Could we modify that to become, and change the layout to make it more accessible,
And this first motion.
and prominent?
So sorry, you want
Accessible and prominent to become accessible, consistent, and prominent. Because right now they look like completely different layouts.
Okay.
So, since we're making this a little too operational, why don't we, instead of tasking BPOF, why don't we recommend BPOF to do this and then report back to council instead?
Is that agreeable to you, Lynn? Okay, so we're recommending instead of tasking.
So task becomes recommends.
Sorry?
Okay, yeah, task becomes recommends.
Okay.
Report back to council instead.
Is that kind of implied? I don't think we need to have them to report back. They will, kind of deal. Are you okay with that? Yeah? Okay. I would like to suggest that we're just going to talk about this for a while. We're just pacing. So this is the motion that we're going to, the motion that we're going to be voting on. Does anyone want a moment to read it? Do they want me to read it out loud? I guess people on Google Hangouts can't read it, so I will read it aloud. Be it resolved, Council recommends VP Operations and Finance to work towards having one website host all Feds Bus information. Rename that link, the link currently called Fed Bus Info to be more clear, and change the layout to make it more accessible, consistent, and prominent. Be it further resolved that the Federation of Students explored using Google Map markers or Google Street View to display precise Fed Bus pickup locations rather than the general area where applicable.
For slight wording, in the first clause, having one website host all Fed bus, could we please capitalize F and B? Yes, and in the second clause, could we please capitalize Google Street View, so it's capital G, capital S, capital E?
You got it. Okay.
Sorry, furthermore, could we go back to the first clause, except Fed bus, right now there's a space?
Sure.
Can we remove that space? Yes.
Okay.
Can I do that?
So, all in favor? All opposed or abstaining? We're unanimous. Great. Awesome. So that brings us to the end of our...
Can we vote on the main motion?
Oh, sorry guys. Distracted. Alright, so we have to vote on the main motion. All in favor? All opposed or abstaining? Great. Can you see this? Yes, I can actually do send it to you. Oh, perfect. Right.
I have a new business item.
Cool. Go for it.
This is kind of something that I thought of in relation to the discussion we were having related to who could be a council board. One thing, when bylaws were amended last year to allow society presidents voting rights here, the bylaw says, it says president or designate selected in accordance with the procedure, and we don't have procedure for that. So I'm actually just sending this motion right down to you, Elizabeth. The motion I'm doing now, be resolved, council task PDC to draft procedure governing the participation in council meetings of designates of society presidents in accordance with Article 8, Section 2, Subsection 1 of the bylaws. Just to fill up that procedural gap.
Sorry, I'll put this up on the screen when I get it, guys. It's school Wi-Fi. Okay, would anyone like to speak to that, though? Oh, I'm sorry. You can bring that forward to motion, right?
Yes.
We have a second.
Can you repeat that? I couldn't hear it.
I can send it to you when I get it. Is that helpful?
I'll forward it to her right now.
Okay.
Did we have a second?
I haven't gotten it yet. Which email?
I sent it over Facebook.
Oh, well, that would be it.
Do you need a second still?
Yeah.
I can second.
Okay, perfect. I have not received it over Facebook either.
Want me to send it another way?
That would be great. Just email. Or just came through. Okay, so then anyone have something like to say about it? Oh, sorry, yes, it's because we're not actually Facebook. And, okay, got it. I got it. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have anything to talk about regarding this?
I can explain it further.
If anyone wants, or are we clear and happy to vote? Happy to vote? All right. So all in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to bring up in new business? Richard?
Just two very quick points. Firstly, about the possible meeting on the 29th. How do we feel about that? Because it is technically within the first, like, the exam period for background starts on the Saturday for whatever reason. And this meeting would be held the Sunday, literally right after the start. So technically it is in the exam period, which means not only we don't do it, but it's only the weekend of, it's the first weekend of.
I would prefer no. Not have a meeting exams.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the next meetings.
Okay.
And honestly, for that, if you have that council meeting, the only thing that we would bring up would be probably the budget, which we kind of just go with the email, and if anything comes up, we have that in your receipt. So I think if everyone else is cool, I see that we don't do that in a month, but that was just my opinion.
And then second, also noted that, just for information, normally we do hold meetings during the exams, but we voted not to do so at the beginning of the year at the first meeting. Just because council procedure requires 4 meetings per term, but it is ultimately, like, we are ultimately students, so I totally understand if you don't want to.
So I guess with the spacing requirements there for 3 weeks, holding 4 a term and staying out of exam schedule is kind of untenable.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that.
That's not to say we need to do anything, it's just saying we might need to have a bigger discussion at the first September meeting as to whether we need to suspend the procedure, or whether we need to look at amending the procedure, or whether we need to look at, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we could bring this forward as a discussion another time, sort of thing. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Discussion for the next meeting.
So I love that. Okay, so no one's objecting to us not having a meeting during exams tonight. Perfect. Do we need to vote on not having a meeting? I don't think we should.
It was just a discussion, but if you guys really wanted it to, we can.
There's no current scheduled meeting.
Okay, yeah. Perfect.
And then, Seneca will discuss that later. And then, in terms of just a general point, it was brought up to us, I believe both math and science. Wow, I'm really having a hard time with this, sorry. Science counselors have a group on Facebook just for communications and just so we're aware of consistency. Students council should be students with an apostrophe after the plural, council. And feds should not be all capitalized ever. It should only be the F should only be the only capital. So it's capital F, D, DS, and EDS is lowercase. Just so it's clear.
So, Richard,
Yeah.
just a clarification, if that's a marketing directive, then it needs to become being made publicly available. Because in our feds contracts, we routinely refer to feds as capital F, capital E, capital D, capital S.
Then I
So,
would hard oppose that. But we'll go through that. We'll go through that. But just for like consistency of marketing and
Anything public facing?
yeah, we should be sticking to that until we change something.
Unrelated topic for discussion. How do we go by setting meeting dates for next term?
Do we want me to send out a doodle and we can sort it that way? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I will write something down.
Can I make a motion that such meeting dates be set within the next 2 weeks?
Depending on when class schedules come out. I don't know if they come out till July 18th.
Of course, we normally schedule meetings on weekends anyway,
Oh,
so.
right, do it.
Does anyone else feel like discussing it?
Did you say next 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. If no one else said anything like this, oh, Matt, is that you?
No.
Okay. No one else said anything like this, have any business, this meeting
Wait
is
till
adjourned.
that motion actually get passed.
I think we said it. I'll do it.
why do we need to do a doodle at all? If we haven't scheduled a final meeting, then there's no need to have.
It's for September at all, right? It's for the fall.
Sorry?
Doodles for the fall.
I can't hear you.
Okay, all Facebook.
Guys, I'm so glad you're doing this. Like, I really apologize. I'm trying to get through this one. Chopping through. Thanks, Tom.